Today we have a very interesting session on modeling and analytics in supply chain. Especially the focus is on application through short case studies, and we have an expert for this topic. Mr. Prashant Nagpure sir is with us. Just a second. Prashant sir is currently working with Advisor Digital Transformation at PwC and has a total of 20 years of experience in this industry. Prior to PwC, sir has worked at Amazon, Tech Mahindra, World Bank Group, Jubilant Life Sciences, Dell and Agilent Technologies in supply chain and procurement domain. Sir has done his master in supply chain from MIT USA and MBA from SPJ and Mumbai. One special thing, sir is also guest faculty at IMT Ghaziabad and teaches various topics on supply chain modeling, analytics, and procurement. Thank you, Prashant sir, for accepting our request in the last moment. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Santosh, and thanks for inviting me to this session. So happy to share some of the work that I was involved in as a professional working with different companies as well as some of the clients in the consulting engagement. So let me start um, by sharing my screen. So this is okay. So rather than short cases, I changed the term. These are few cases. The reason I changed the word short to few was there was a they were vast in the scope in terms of its implementation, in terms of its complexity, and in terms of its stakeholder engagement that was required to do these projects. Some of these case studies that we are going to discuss are are short in the sense that what we are going to discuss is a glimpse of the work that was done, along with some of the key findings that came out of it, and how some of them could be useful and relevant in terms of your teaching or research as well. So, with that, let me just move to the three and give you a background of these case studies. So, first is we did work with FACE, which is the Food and Agriculture Center of Excellence at Confederation of Indian Industry, and they essentially work with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and their focus is working with the industry in terms of optimizing the various aspects of improving the agriculture, um, uh, the industry linkages, and one of the topics that was often being discussed in terms of the food wastage. So, how do you fundamentally address the food wastage issue through some of the optimization algorithms? So, we'll have a look at it. There is a very simple, very basic, something that you already do on a day-to-day basis, and we'll do a small exercise, basically looking at the allocation as the key algorithm, and we can discuss some of the findings that the analysis and the finding that we had done as a part of this case. The second case that we can discuss is about the retail checkout efficiency. Why I am very interested. This is a very lean transformation kind of case study in an operations domain, where queuing theory can be deployed in terms of understanding the how it impacts the operations in a retail checkout environment. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And the third is a very interesting use case of market basket analysis, something that we are exposed on a day-to-day basis in our e-commerce transactions on the various market-led marketplaces and online buying and that happens through the web. So these are the three areas that we can conclude today. So there are a bunch of slides. I don't know. We have about 2.5 hours. I think somewhere in between we'll take a 10 minutes break, and we'll try to have about 1 hour each, and maybe some time for discussions. I'd like to keep this session interactive, so feel free to ask me questions. I'm a little rusty. These are some of the old cases, so Professor Shah would be able to help me out, hopefully. And we can now straight away jump. Before I jump into it, any questions that you have?
No, sir.
Okay, very well. Let's move forward. Okay, so this is the first case study, and before I jump into it, I should minimize this. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. Yeah. So if I look at this, this kind of talks about the persistent inflation that we are facing, and recent cases when the war started between Russia and Ukraine. There was significant impact, especially on some of the high consumption commodities such as gas and oil. In the past, we have seen significant inflation in the food commodities, especially fruit, fresh fruit, vegetables, etc. And some of the clippings that I have picked up, uh, essentially, if you were to think about it, um, have you experienced this in your day-to-day buying, or something that you see from these pictures? Can you make out something out of this?
Yes, sir. The wastage of food because of some non, uh, not very useful reasons.
Hmm. Right. Right. Anybody else? So some of these pictures left inside is self-explanatory. There is a clipping from the newspaper which talks about the prices, rising prices. On the right-hand side, if you see, there is a wastage of milk and potatoes and onions because of the overproduction. And the third picture is very, very sad. There are farmers which are protesting because of the inability, because of multiple issues. This was one of the cases where Tamil Nadu farmers came to Delhi and they were protesting against the availability of the various facilities, um, uh, and various types of issues that they were facing, and they were protesting against the government. So they basically brought a lot of skulls along with. So that became a big news. So on one hand, we have overproduction of these commodities. So if you on the right hand side in the top two pictures, if you see there is an excess of this production. On the other side, you see increasing prices because of the wastages and shortages. So the case study essentially talked about some of the research that we did, and some of the research publications that came out with the figures that about 18 to 40% of fruits and vegetables get wasted, and the money estimated was something somewhere around 13,000 to about 60,000 crores. And this is way back in 2014-15 timeframe. So I hope some of the improvement in the logistics infrastructure is alleviating some of this, but this was the initial study that came out with from CIFET. Then, of course, there are food losses because of the crop production choices, patterns, infrastructure, capacity, marketing channels, purchasing and food use practices. There is a lot of inefficiency in the absence of effective networks, especially between producers, processors, distributors. And then, of course, depending on the vagaries of nature, you will either have a surplus or a shortage, and that fundamentally impacts the demand supply situation, causing rise to the prices, or sometimes you have to basically destroy the food, produce the fruits and vegetables that you are producing, because there is not enough demand for these commodities in the market. Um, and and uh, one of the key challenges, especially in those kind of circumstances, is this misreading of the signals that is coming from the markets, where there is no buffer in between in terms of storage or processing infrastructure to prevent the shock of demand and supply. So this case study essentially was to look at how you can address the overall issue of food shortages, leveraging some of the optimization algorithms and techniques that are available. So these are some of the food wastage and losses in perishables. Any thoughts about this? I think it's self-explanatory, but just wanted to have a uh, any inputs from the audience here. Have you seen something like this? Food getting wastage. Anybody
Yes,
has
sir.
visited Azadpur Mandi,
Mm.
Delhi?
No, sir.
Okay, so if you so there are mandis across various cities, states, and of course recently if you have some of the farmer protests happened regarding the MSPs and some of the laws that were being amended. So I think the problem is very real. The problem exists. The problem cannot be ignored. So this was one of the reasons that CIA sponsored this study. So I'll move to the next one. So what was the objective of this study? So objective was this study was to develop something which is called a SAFE, which is sustainable agriculture and food ecosystem for perishable agri and food produce. And some of the terms that we coined were that SAFE means that it's a rapid response through processors and storage infrastructure. It safe also means safety net that producers and consumers are protected from overproduction and shortages. Save also means that we bring in the efficiency, so we basically reduce the wastage. And safe means that we provide equitable access to the infrastructure, knowledge, best practices to the producers. And of course, the last one, which was critical from our study perspective, how do you really optimize the resource allocation and utilization? Some of the key parameters or the performance indicators that we felt were necessary for this kind of a study was that, okay, what kind of price realization the farmers would receive post the conclusion of this study, and if we implement some of the proposals that are forwarded through this study, does it impact the farm productivity with the better information availability? Consumers, of course, the impact in terms of prices, inflation index, and how we can reduce the variability in the prices. Storage, basically some of the parameters around capacities, availabilities, and what kind of supplies lead to price stabilization, what kind of logistics cost is incurred in terms of movement, and then finally in terms of processing, what are the value added processing facilities that can be created around these clusters of production as well as consumption centers that fundamentally helps in reducing the wastages. So these were some of the KPIs that were proposed. So as a part of, because this was an industry study, it was very important for us to say that, okay, what will make this case and the study that we are undertaking a successful, and what are the parameters of success? So these were some of them that came out based on the brainstorming with the various stakeholders involved in this study. Now jumping into what was the purpose and what we were trying to look at. So what we were trying to say is that, okay, there are two clusters. One is a production cluster and the second is the consumption cluster. Then what kind of function that we can write, which will fundamentally look at the distance traveled by the commodity, the perishability of the products, and the logistics infrastructure in terms of processing and warehousing problems. So just give me a second. So the production and consumption nodes, including value chain, will be mapped. So basically, the idea was that we will optimize the entire value chain for each commodity. And I will walk you through one of the commodities, potatoes, the work that we did. And the optimized model essentially will recommend the infrastructure requirements. Okay. Okay. So before I jump into this, as suggested by Professor Shah, I'm just going to share a small file in which we can look at a very simple exercise, right? So how do I share, ma'am? Uh, is there a way? Okay.
Sorry, what do you want to share? I
I
didn't
just
realize
want to
that.
share a file.
आप इसको unshare करके then you can share, or you want to share it with the batch?
Yeah, it's just one of the. You mentioned you want us to do some work, right? Some
So
exercise.
you can. Is it possible to send it to me through WhatsApp or mail? I can immediately forward it to you.
Yeah. I'll send it on WhatsApp. Yeah.
Sure.
Just give me a second.
I am not sure if we can send it through chat. No, we cannot send it through chat. So yeah, you'll be sending it to me by WhatsApp or by mail.
WhatsApp.
Done. Okay,
Just
Abhijit,
give
then
me a
I'll forward
second.
it to them. Sure.
Okay, I'm slightly challenged with this today. Okay, exercise 1 and 2. This is class exercise, right? Okay, this is where we have. Okay, very basic exercise that we'll try to do today, so that it gives you the underlying concept. And before I jump into the exercise, hopefully everybody has access to solver, right?
Send the file to all. Please check on your WhatsApp. I've sent it to the group. Anybody wants me to send it on mail, or is it okay? No one is replying. They're more comfortable in WhatsApp, I assume.